You're listening to Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Making lifestyle changes is hard for many people, and not knowing what to do or how to do it makes the task all the more daunting. Here at Health Nuts, we focus on helping you live a fuller life by discussing everyday health issues and exploring breakthrough solutions on how to overcome them. And now, here's your host, Dr. Chris Carr.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Health Nuts. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Carr, and I'm so excited to have on today's guest, and that is Deborah Morgan. Deborah Morgan is a certified in holistic nutrition and has GAP certification to add to her training. She has 15 years of experience in the field, and she runs the Kids Health Revolution. So I am so happy and excited to have you on today's podcast. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to hear this message.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks so much.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, the protocol and what you're going to share today, I always like to have a nice little personal message. I know you got a great story to tell. Where are you from?
I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where it is presently snowing at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you better like the cold up there.
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad. We've had some cold, but we've had some nice weather too. So coming up into spring, which we're all looking forward to, of course. So yeah, it's good.
So it's great to have you on. What is with your? I know you have a good story with your little one. What's the background? What's the background with him?
Sure. So when my son was 2 years old, we took him to the doctor. He had a little white spot on his skin, which I really didn't think was a big deal, but it was kind of getting bigger. So I thought, well, we better check this out. Took him to the doctor, and I was kind of blown away to be told that it was an autoimmune condition, and that there was really nothing that we could do about it. So the condition was called vitiligo. And she said, not really, no treatment for it. It'll probably spread, and we'll have to keep checking him every year because his immune system could attack other organs as well. So it was pretty terrifying, right? And really frustrating to me. And so it's part of the reason that I'm on this path, because I think that we get a little bit, I don't know if the word is brainwashed, but there's this sense of powerlessness that we have when we go through something like a diagnosis, whether it's for ourselves or for our child. And we feel like we don't have any control over the process. And from experience now, I know that that's not true. And so in that moment in the doctor's office, I was hearing all of this, but there's just this little part of me that was going, no, I'm not going to just lay down and take this as it is. So I went home and pretty much immediately pulled out the laptop, and there's a lot of criticism in the medical field about people Googling their symptoms, right? But the positive side of it is we have so much information available to us now that we didn't used to have, and information is power. And so I did tons of research, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of indecision, a lot of analysis paralysis. But, the thing that I kept coming back to and kept seeing a lot was diet, and that a lot of people with autoimmune and chronic illness were using diet to turn around their health. And so I thought, well, you know what? Here's something that's totally under my control as a parent. It's not harmful. There's no side effects. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And we did. And that was, he's 8 now. And we are probably about 95% improved in terms of his health. So he has the big white spot that is probably now about that big, which was supposed to be impossible. We were told that just wouldn't happen. It would probably spread rather than get better. So it's pretty amazing. And I want other parents to know you do have more power than you realize you do.
Yeah, and you're able, through your journey, it's taking you down this road, and thank God that you went down this path, because who knows what would have happened if maybe you took a left instead of a right.
Well, that's absolutely right. And so I think what, any parent who has had a child that's been diagnosed with a chronic illness, or even an adult, you have the choice of just going down the traditional road, or you have the choice of making some other choices, some complementary choices that could really, make the hugest difference. And if our children are starting out their lives with asthma and eczema and psoriasis and allergies and autoimmune and all of these things at the beginning of their lives, I think really as parents, we have a responsibility to ask ourselves, what is their life going to look like when they're our age, if this is how they're starting, right? And we need to get them now. We know now that the foundation of their future health and even their brain health starts as children.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to the content that you're going to have to share, specifically because there's so many things out there, and your regimen and the protocol that you have is not as it works for your own individual family, but with a ton of your clients and patients as well.
Exactly.
Before we get there, I always like to start off on an affirmation, positive quote. What's something maybe you have on one of your walls, or something that you words of wisdom?
Well, one of the things that I always believe in is well, boy, I don't know if I'd call it positive, but I do often say to myself, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. My mom always used to say that to me whenever I faced some sort of adversity. And I did hold that, in my mind when I went through this experience with my son and making the changes and the challenges that, it was making us as a family stronger, making me stronger, making him stronger, and seeing it as an opportunity to grow and to have new experiences, rather than just seeing it as this terrible thing that's happening to us.
Yeah, that is, I always like to say, if I were to go back and talk to my younger self, that would probably be one of the first things I tell myself, is that that doesn't kill us. It's going to definitely make you stronger, because you got to go through kind of that suck, if you will, in order to get you where you want to go.
Right on. That's where all the good stuff comes out of life, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
So today we're going to really hammer out the kids' health and why it's so important. And I know with you being in Canada, in the U.S., the kids, we got 1 in 4 kids that are on a prescription med. They're expected to be on the rest of their life. We have kids that are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which we know is adult onset diabetes.
Yep.
This is the first generation in the U.S. where the kids aren't expected to outlive their parents.
Yes.
And it's some scary stuff that's out there, and it really hits home with a lot of parents. So I'm looking forward to hearing your message. And one of the questions I always like to ask when it comes to this is, is it all genetic? Is it because our parents were this way?
Well, great question. And that's something that we hear a lot. It's a line that we get. Any parent who's been through this process will probably have heard from their doctor, it's genetic, which is kind of devastating for us as parents, or it used to be, I think, or it can be, because we hear that and we go, oh God, well, I mean, it's in his genetic code. There's nothing we can do about this, right? And that's something that's huge for me. I want parents, when they hear that, to really pause and really question that paradigm, because it's not true. It's just simply not true. In some certain cases, there's hardwired genetic mutations that we can't change. But when we're talking about chronic illness, there is so much going on inside your child's body, so many factors going on that influence the expression of your child's genes. And that's good news for us as parents, because a lot of that stuff that's going on in there are things that we can control.
And when we talk about these chronic diseases, we're talking with the ones that really stick out can be the autoimmune conditions like your son has. We go down the road and the doc will say, this might be what they have, how we're going to deal with it. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be pharmaceutically.
Yes. Yep.
And the alternative there is, what options would you recommend outside of a pharmaceutical recommendation? I know you're going to really hit on the nutrition aspect of it. Why is it so important to change up the nutrition?
Okay, so absolutely. Usually the recommendations are pharmaceutical. Sometimes those are absolutely necessary. Sometimes, we need to work with the pharmaceutical path for a while and then do some alternative stuff that's going to complement it until they can maybe get off the pharmaceutical. Other times, like in my son's case, the pharmaceutical was a topical steroid, which maybe could do the repigmentation, but had all of those side effects. So it was like, let's just pass on that. And let's get inside the body and see what's going on at a more root kind of level, right? Because when we're talking functional nutrition, if we're talking any of the holistic approaches, we're looking at root things, not just the symptom. So if it's asthma or eczema or allergies or autoimmune, those are just the symptoms of something else that's going on. And so the biggest things that we can do as parents are nutrition and environmental changes. And they're usually pretty simple things to do.
In regard to the nutritional stuff, we know that the gut health it's so important, and it allows pretty much a huge opportunity for your kids to influence the kids' overall health and well-being. What is toxic for the gut? What's going to be good for the gut? What are you teaching to all your clients?
Okay, that's a great question, and the whole topic of how the gut is related to chronic health is huge, and we could use an hour to go into that.
I agree.
Yeah, essentially, just to give a quick little bit of background for parents, if we're talking about the gut, the gut is involved with digestion, absorption, detoxification, but it also protects us from all kinds of stuff that comes in that should stay inside the intestine and not go out into the bloodstream. And what can start happening that we're seeing now in the scientific literature is that we have a phenomenon called leaky gut. So instead of being this really impermeable membrane that only lets a certain amount of stuff through, there's these little gaps that are formed, and stuff is leaking through that should not get through. 70% of the immune system is around the gut, so we get inflammation, and we get chronic inflammation, and we know that inflammation is underlying almost all, well, if not all, chronic conditions. So what we want to do from a nutritional point of view is give the child's body a chance to bring that inflammation down. And so we do that by supporting the cells of the intestine, and we do that also very importantly by helping the microbiota, so those little gut bug critters that live in all of our bodies. So important. It's fascinating. I can't get enough of what those guys do. But we need to make sure they're balanced, because the imbalance affects the leaky gut, it affects the neurotransmitters, it affects all kinds of stuff. So from a nutritional point of view, we're going in with foods that are going to help support the gut. So fermented foods are huge. Now I know there's tons of parents that are going to listen to this and they're going to go, right, my kid's not going to eat sauerkraut. You might be surprised, so give it a try, but there's tons of great fermented food out there now that doesn't have to be sauerkraut. So you can get yummy fermented pickles, you can get fermented carrot pickles. There's lots of really great fermented drinks like kombucha and kefir drinks. Coconut kefir is great. I wouldn't say your processed yogurts that you're getting at your major chain store are really all that great for your probiotics, but like a kefir, a coconut kefir, or even dairy kefir, great and full of all that multi-bacterial stuff that we need.
Yeah, and you can make you can make a ton of them, and you hit with a ton of those foods that you can make when you buy them. There's a ton of recipes you can follow, especially make a kombucha or a certain type of tea, and it's pennies on the dollar whenever
Absolutely.
you make it at the house, especially the kefir like you had recommended. So those fermented foods, we know those are going to provide really good probiotics. The probiotics, the expensive supplements, they might have 20 to 30 strains of a probiotic that are in there, and they can be $80 to $90 for the supplement. Whereas a fermented food, you're looking at 70 to 90 sometimes of different strains of bacteria. It's not only going to be a lot cheaper for you, it's going to be a lot healthier for you too. I think that's such a huge point you hit home with. What other foods outside fermented foods would you say?
So another one, so that we're supporting the cells of the intestine themselves, are meat stocks. So good old-fashioned, throw a chicken in some water and boil it up, that your grandma probably used to do, turns out something that's really good for us. So you can do it with chicken, you can do it with beef, you can do it with lamb. Lamb's one of my favorites. Duck, whatever your heart desires. What you want to do is make sure you have a really meaty joint. So lots of meat on it and lots of that connective tissue around the joint, because that has some of the collagen and the particular amino acids that are really helpful to the enterocytes, the cells of the intestine. So I often say to parents, make soups, a couple of soups for the week, or cook your vegetables in the stock, or you can make gravy with it. You can also use it to make smoothies. Just put a spoonful of it in your smoothie. You don't even know it's there. So lots of ways to get that really gut boosting meat stock goodness into you.
And I think what you just did is you just debunked the non-fat stuff that's out there. We were told.
Oh, yeah.
No fat, no carb, and we know that. I mean, what you just said, it's all full fat, and it's healthy
Yes.
fat.
So. Absolutely, and that fat, even the saturated, the really maligned saturated fat, is so healthy when it comes to helping heal and seal the gut. We have to have those fats, and they feed the brain. There's just so much good stuff that comes from them. So. Yes, if it's one thing that you do as a parent, it's make sure your kid's getting fat in their diets.
What can they do? So now that we have a parent listening and they have, their son or daughter has an autoimmune issue, allergies, eczema, not progressing, even something neurologically where they're just, they're fatigued, brain fog, can't seem to concentrate. What are some protocols that you would recommend?
Okay, well, it really depends on where the child is and what sort of condition they're struggling with and where their health is. But usually, depending on the parent, I recommend starting with small steps. This wasn't me. I'm kind of a dive in with both feet and ask questions later kind of person, but I know most people aren't like that. So, small steps, I think some of the most important things to do, first of all, is to really get a focus in your family on real food. So that means getting back into the kitchen and making some food, doing your meat stocks, maybe making some fermented foods, and getting away from this idea that our food comes from a box. So if it's in its more natural state, it's going to be more full of its nutrients, its natural nutrients. And it's also going to be able to support our gut bugs in the right way. So our beneficial microflora really thrive on, good, fibrous, nutrient-dense foods, whereas the more opportunistic or the pathogenic species really thrive on the processed foods and the processed sugars and the glutens and the processed dairy that most of our kids are getting. I'd say a lot of kids, 90% of their daily intake is those foods, right?
It's
so
huge.
We're feeding the bad gut bacteria, and we're creating this imbalance. So we need to get away from that and get back into just good old-fashioned real food to start. That's a place that you can start. I would say that gluten-free is pretty key for most kids that have some sort of chronic health issue. There's a lot of information now onto why gluten is a problem, not just for people who are celiac, right? That gluten sensitivity, even Harvard medicals come out and say gluten sensitivity is actually a thing, which is good news.
Right. And not even just gluten sensitivity. I would also probably take it one step further, because what makes something gluten-free, those types of breads, there's usually a lot of chemicals and things that can actually be not even the best thing for you.
Absolutely.
And just eliminate not even gluten, but that doesn't give you the kitchen pass to go to even like a spelt or a different type of a bread, like an Ezekiel, all the time either, because there's even some strong research showing that although it's sprouted, it's still going to cause some inflammation over time. But those are the breads you'd want to go more closer towards, which.
Yeah. And that's so important because a lot of people, when they make the switch, and this happened to us, we went just gluten-free at first. And of course, it's so easy to go gluten-free now with all the products that are out there. We didn't see results. And now, knowing what I know, it's no big surprise because here in Canada, and I think in the US as well, all of our gluten-free products are corn and soy based,
Right.
Which, I mean, we've got the GMO question there affecting the gut bugs. We've got the fact that the proteins in those particular grains cross-react like gluten, and all of these reasons that so many people go gluten-free and think it didn't do anything for them, and it's because they didn't do it right. And so the key is get rid of the processed foods, get back to real foods, and including the gluten-free processed stuff.
And I think what you are referencing to as well, when you're saying to tell the parents get back in the kitchen, what that means in layman's terms is they got a meal plan and meal prep.
Yeah. In some cases, for a lot of people, meal planning and meal prep works. It's something that I do with and for most of my clients. If I'm kind of the person, I can make it up on the fly and grab something out of the freezer and have dinner still made in 20 minutes. But, I like to cook and I like to get creative, and a lot of people don't.
Right.
So if you don't like to cook, then meal planning and preparation is your best friend. And it can make it so easy that all it needs to take is, a couple of hours on a weekend to get a few things prepared for the week. And then I'm a big proponent of batch cooking. So if you're in the kitchen and you're making a batch of soup, then make 3 batches of soup. It only takes about 10 minutes more to make the extra batches, and then you've got extra on hand. So
It's huge.
yeah, it is huge. So having those resources for meal planning and the shopping lists and all that stuff, that's stuff that I do for my clients, and it's a lifesaver especially when you're first starting out.
Correct. Yeah. And it ends up being, it's a time saver, and it's also a money saver as well. You end up not making bad decisions. It's one of the biggest principles if they want to see results. And if you're out there listening, that one of the best things we can tell you to do would be to do the meal planning and meal prepping.
Yep.
What are 3 things, because I love to have the audience with take-home information, things they can implement right away. 3 health nuggets maybe you could share that they could implement.
Okay, so I think we've covered a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
So start including more fermented foods in your child's diet. So however that looks, that would be a big one. Begin thinking about using some of these traditional foods like meat stocks and stuff like that. Try and include them 3 or 4 times out of your week when you're first starting out. And I think another nugget would be, I guess part of it would be to realize that, one objection I get a lot from parents is that their child is such a picky eater and all they'll eat is processed foods. Yeah. And to understand that part of what can be going on there is that imbalance in the gut bugs, and they're actually driving the cravings. So I think once parents can get their heads around that and realize it's not just that your kid is so terribly stubborn and willful, but maybe there's something bigger going on. And if you can make some of these little changes, swap out the processed foods for more whole food options, you're going to see a change and a turnaround in those cravings.
So I could not agree with you more.
Mm-hmm.
So those are 3 takeaways. Those were great. If we're able to, and I always like to ask this one as well, if you're able to go back maybe 15, 20, 25 years, it's kind of a back to the future question.
Yeah.
What would you tell your younger self?
Don't give up, and remember you have so much personal power, and don't ever let anybody take that away. Strangely, when I was in my 20s, I had a Taoist symbol tattooed on my back that pretty much means exactly that. And it's proven to be very important in my life. And it's my core message that I want to share with the world and with parents, that we have in our own hands as parents or as people looking after our own health, in our own hands, we have so much power in just some of these simple changes, and we need to grab it and realize it and start making the changes and taking action and stop being told that there's nothing that we can do.
That's funny that is yours, because one of the ones I have in my office is keep on keeping on.
Aha, perfect.
So
Love it.
I get it.
Yeah. Is that the one with the cat who's hanging?
Yeah. It's getting ready to fall.
Yeah.
Best advice you ever got? What was it?
Best advice I ever got. That's a good question. Well, my mom used to tell me when I was a kid what is the expression? Shoot for the stars. Mm-hmm. And even if you miss, at least you're going to land on the moon. Mm-hmm. I think that was really, really important advice for me, and I've followed it most of my life.
Love it. What makes you a health nut?
Well, I've always been a little bit of a health nut because I guess I consider myself a little bit of a rebel, and I've never sort of lived within the normal sort of paradigm of how things should be done. But definitely having seen what's possible through my experience with my own son has made me a health nut. And for myself, made me a health nut for my own health, because I have done what he's done. I've done the dietary changes with him, and wow, I have benefited hugely from it. So, I'm sold hook, line, and sinker on this lifestyle.
And you can tell, even just from talking to you, where your mindset is at. And it's, when I talk to a ton of docs or patients, you can tell a lot of times if they already feel defeated, or if they know, like, their attitude, their mindset, they're personally empowered. And
yes.
Not taking no, and what you did years and years ago, and you didn't like the answer that you got, and you found a better answer for you.
Right on. Yeah.
So for the struggling person out there, you have the parent out there that's now struggling, and they might be walking in your shoes where you were at 8, 9, 10 years ago. What would you tell them?
Well, the very first thing would be, don't give up. There are solutions out there. Do your research, grab the power that's available to you. And the next thing would be get support. So when I started this journey of making the changes for my child, I had a good friend who had just started the journey a little bit before me. Her son was diagnosed with autism about a year before my son's diagnosis. And she was my pillar during this. I don't know if I'd have gotten through it without somebody else that got it, right? Because most people don't get it. Most people around you look at you like you're on another planet when you talk about what you're doing. And so I needed somebody who got me. And luckily I had her. So one of the things that I've done for parents with that in mind is I've created a community for parents. So it's kidshealthrevolution.com. And it's community. And so you join, there's free resources and stuff, which is fabulous. But I think the most important thing is that connection with other parents who are on this same path, because we need to support each other, and we need to be, a movement together, right? And as we increase the movement, this sort of mass thing starts to happen, and we can influence other people. But if you're struggling to make change, reach out, find that support, find your community. Absolutely connect with me on healthrevolution.com. I'm in that forum on Facebook, Kids Health Revolution. You can chat with me on there. And I also run a Kids Healing Boot Camp, actually. I run it quarterly, so every 4 months. And I walk parents very step-by-step sort of process through like a gut healing protocol. We start eliminating a few foods, and we help answer questions, and I give them the recipes and the meal plans and the shopping lists and the whole thing. So if you're thinking about making change but you're overwhelmed by it, and maybe this is something that'll help you, I'll just kind of hold your hand through that process.
Yeah, not reinventing the wheel, going with somebody who's already done it and lived it.
Yeah,
your story holds a lot more merit because of where you are at and what you've done. And that's actually how I came across you, was that I had heard one of your earlier podcasts, and I thought the message was so powerful. That's why I wanted to have you on. Is there any other ways? So you have the website, Facebook, any other ways they can get hold of you? I think was that everything?
Yeah, so the website, kidshealthrevolution.com, Facebook, I'm on Twitter, which is at kidshealthrev, and you can email me, which is Deborah, spelled DEBORAH, at DeborahMorganConsulting.com. That's a long one. And actually on my homepage of my website, if you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, there's a little calendar there, and I do little 15-minute pre-consult sessions. So if somebody just wants to ask a few questions, they're not sure about, what this would be all about or what working with me would look like, they can book a little time on there to chat with me, and that's completely complimentary. So.
Yeah, as you know, to the audience, I only have on the experts in the field. So hunt her down. If anything that she had said struck a chord with you, take her up on the offer. Deborah, you said it all.
Yeah, thank you. We condensed it all in there.
Yeah, and hopefully we can maybe cross this bridge and do it again down the road.
For sure. I would love to.
It was great having you on, and thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye now.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, you've heard from the experts yourself this episode and have gotten some golden nuggets on health. There is so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to pghcw.com. Again, that's pghcw.com. And sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive free info on how to get and stay healthy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Health Nuts with Dr. Chris Carr. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and please leave a review.